That's a little better in preparation for stronger winds. Just got the staysail with a reef in it, and cleared the Yankee off the bowsprit. Because what can happen, and really when these waves really get up, is if she starts plunging the bowsprit into the water, I found no matter how well I have the Yankee furled and tied off to the whisker stays and stops, it'll begin to work loose when it really gets rough. And I've had sails, I've torn sails that way. So I find before it gets rough is do the deed and unhank it from the jib stay and put it back in its bag and store it below. Then you won't have any problems. Well, the winds are continuing to increase, and the forecast models are now showing winds gusting up into the 30 knot range overnight. So we're going to go through one more round of reefs here. Right now I'm up forward. I'm going to take the reef staysail in and just lash it down in stops and replace it with the smaller heavy weather jib, heavy weather staysail. I'll also tuck a third reef in the mainsail, and hopefully that'll keep her shortened down enough for the night. We got all that and more overnight, and we still got big breaking swells the following morning to greet us. Hopefully the strongest winds are now past, and it will gradually begin to settle as the high pressure builds in. What a hellish night. So we laid like this, we just played a drag after midnight, after taking a big breaking wave down the companionway. The ride was really not very pleasant, so I decided just to put her to sleep. We still got about 25-30 knots of wind. I think now that I have daylight, I'll try to get her sailing again. Well, an old problem has returned. It often returns in strong winds, is that the air paddle keeps slipping on the trim tab shaft no matter how much I tighten it. So we're going to try a new solution here, which is to put a piece of plastic tubing with a cut down lengthwise down the middle so it can be compressed, and see if that'll give it something to grab onto there. And just don't lose that air paddle overboard while you're doing the replacement. So what I did was I just took some of this is from these epoxy syringes, and I just cut off a section of it and put it over the trim tab shaft. Hopefully give the air paddle something a little more to clamp onto. Because it seems like I'm clamping it, but it's just not getting tight. So we'll see if this works. So let's have another look at the big chart here. It is Saturday, November 21st. Tomorrow we'll be 2 weeks at sea. And we are presently at about 24 north and about 35 and a half west. So we're right about here. So we sort of wandered because we're up we wandered up to about 25 north here, and so we got a little north of our track. I wanted to follow the middle route, and we're up sort of between the middle route and the northern route, and that was just because I kept her on starboard jibe and the wind was east-northeast, and I kept working. Couldn't quite steer west-southwest. I was steering west-northwest, and then we got into that rough weather, so I kind of wandered north a bit. So I'm on a much more basically a southwesterly heading now. And I'm going to stay in that heading until I get down to 22, 21 north, and then resume the Great Circle route to the Caribbean. Hopefully we'll have a little better wind, a little more stable winds down south. So we'll see how that works out. Well, it's been a fun time. And right now we have kind of north-northeasterly winds, and I've put her on a more southwesterly heading to try to get a little further south, just in hopes of getting it a little more dependable, a little more steady trade winds, which tend to be down between about 18 and 22 or so. So, as I said, the other thing I'm hoping is to avoid is another pulse of these Christmas winds. Last time that got kind of rough, more than expected, and I took a breaking wave down the companionway, and it got soaked my bedding and sleeping bag and all that, and that's dried out reasonably, even though it's got salt water in it. It's dried out, and however, it's got that kind of smell of a high tide line there. There's probably bits of seaweed or whatever that's in the cloth and in the cushions, and giving kind of that smell. The only other thing is, maybe because we're not near satellites or something, but my Garmin inReach is really slow, has very poor connectivity. I'm finding it often taking a long time to send and receive messages, also a long time to get weather forecasts, so a long time being about an hour or so. And normally it takes 5 minutes. So I don't know. Hopefully that'll speed back up again. Otherwise, it's pretty much a trade wind passage. As you can see, we still got a pretty big swell here coming from the east. That's really rolling us and knocking us around. And the winds are just up and down. I mean, it's gone down to 8 to 10 knots, and then sometimes it gets up to 20 knots, and as you can see, we got these showers around, so that'll cause the wind to pick up and go back down again. So it means that you can't totally relax, but we're sailing right along. We're making good time, and we'll check in with you sometime later. Not too much changes out here, which is actually a good thing. I don't mind boring on a passage, as long as it's boring and I'm making decent time. Well, now the trade winds are lightening up again, so we're up on deck at the crack of dawn, setting more sail. We have many miles left to go and only so much food and water, so we keep driving her on, nights and days.
Oh, and I was a little boy, so hey, Timmy, hey, all away, we'll haul away, Joe. that if I did miss the girls, Jimmy, hey, all away, we'll all away, up, hey, all away, that good shit now we'll roll, right, Jimmy, hey, all away, we'll all away, Joe. First I met a Yankee girl, she was 5 days, hey, all